You are not tired. You are not unlucky. You are leaking power every time you react. This audiobook is about shutting that leak forever. The world does not defeat you with force. It defeats you by provoking your emotions, pulling you into noise, drama, and reaction. Every time you react emotionally, you surrender control. Emotional silence is not weakness. It is discipline. It is strength. It is how you stay standing when life tests you. If you learn to control yourself before life applies pressure, nothing outside you can break you. This audiobook will teach you how to become emotionally untouchable. Chapter 1. Your reactions are costing you everything. You are reacting too fast. That's the problem. And it's costing you more than you realize. Every time something happens, an insult, a delay, a rejection, a surprise, you feel the urge to respond immediately. To defend. To explain. To prove. To correct. To explode. You tell yourself it's justified. You tell yourself it's human. You tell yourself it's necessary. It's not. Every reaction is a withdrawal from your power account. Read that again. Every reaction is a withdrawal from your power account. You don't see the cost because it feels small in the moment. A raised voice here. A long message there. A sarcastic reply. An emotional decision made under pressure. But power is not lost in one dramatic moment. It leaks. Quietly. Consistently. Daily. You have a choice. React or retain control. Most people react. And that's why most people stay weak. When you react emotionally, your focus collapses. Your energy scatters. Your authority dissolves. You move from a position of control into a position of defense. And the moment you are defending, you are already losing. That's the key. The world doesn't need to overpower you physically. It only needs to provoke you emotionally. Once you're triggered, you do the damage yourself. Every reaction is a withdrawal from your power account. Look around you. You've seen it happen in real life. You've seen the employee who lost respect at work, not because they were incompetent but because they reacted emotionally to criticism. They talked too much. They explained too much. They showed frustration. Authority vanished the moment emotional noise entered the room. You've seen the leader who could have stayed silent, but chose to argue, chose to prove, chose to respond publicly. And in doing so, they shrank themselves to the level of the provocation. You've seen relationships collapse not because of one big betrayal, but because of constant emotional reactions. Overthinking. Accusations. Defensive explanations. Small withdrawals over and over until the account hit zero. Every reaction is a withdrawal from your power account. Here's the hard truth. The faster you react, the less powerful you are. Speed feels strong. Silence feels uncomfortable. But silence is where control lives. Silence buys you time. Time buys you clarity. And clarity is leverage. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to think. You don't need their permission to stay silent. Most people never learn this. They confuse reaction with strength. They think expressing emotion is honesty. They think immediate response is confidence. It's not. It's impulsive weakness dressed up as authenticity. You have a choice. You can react and feel relief for 5 seconds. Or you can pause and keep your power. That's the trade. Relief now or control later. Every reaction feels good in the moment because it releases tension. But that relief is expensive. You pay with credibility. You pay with respect. You pay with energy you never get back. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about managing it. It's not about being cold. It's about being disciplined. That's the key. Discipline means you don't let every feeling turn into an action. Discipline means you don't give everyone access to your emotional controls. Discipline means you decide when and how you respond, if you respond at all. And here's something most people don't want to hear. The world watches how you react. People test you. Not consciously sometimes, but they watch. They push. They provoke. They apply pressure. And the moment you react emotionally, they learn something important about you. They learn how to control you. If someone can predict your reaction, they can manipulate you. If someone can trigger you, they can lead you. If someone can upset you, they own your attention. You have a choice. You can be predictable, or you can be disciplined. Every reaction is a withdrawal from your power account. Think about how many decisions you've made while emotional. Messages sent too quickly. Words spoken you couldn't take back. Opportunities missed because you responded from frustration instead of strategy. Emotion narrows your vision. Discipline widens it. Emotion rushes. Discipline waits. That's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who rise quietly. High-level individuals are not calmer because life is easier for them. Life is harder. The stakes are higher. The pressure is heavier. They are calmer because they train themselves not to react. They understand something most people never learn. Your first response is almost always the weakest one. That's the key. When something hits you emotionally, your body wants to act. Your ego wants to speak. Your fear wants to protect itself. But power lives after that moment passes. If you can sit through the discomfort of not reacting, you gain something rare. Choice. You have a choice. And choice is power. This chapter is not asking you to become passive. It's asking you to become precise. To stop wasting energy on reactions that don't serve you. To stop bleeding power for temporary relief. From now on, you start noticing the withdrawals. Every time you feel the urge to react, pause and say it internally. Every reaction is a withdrawal from my power account. Say it again. Every reaction is a withdrawal from my power account. Not every situation deserves your response. Not every comment deserves your explanation. Not every provocation deserves your emotion. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need their permission to be silent. You don't need their permission to keep your power. That's the shift. This is where emotional silence begins, not with silence itself but with awareness of cost. You don't stop reacting because you're weak. You stop reacting because you finally understand the price. You've seen the damage reactions cause. Now you see the pattern. Now you see the leak. And once you see it, you can close it. You learn that reactions drain focus, energy, and authority. You learn that people lose respect and leverage not through failure, but through emotional impulsiveness. You learn the rule that governs this entire audiobook. Every reaction is a withdrawal from your power account. You've taken the first step, awareness. Now it's time to talk about the weapon that replaces reaction completely. You've seen what reacting costs you. Now let's talk about what silence gives you. Chapter 2, Silence is not weakness, it is control. Silence makes people uncomfortable. That's why it works. You were taught, directly or indirectly, that speaking up proves confidence, that responding quickly shows strength, that silence means you've lost. That belief has kept you reactive, exposed, and easy to read. It's wrong. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Control speaks quietly. Chaos speaks loudly. When you stay silent, something important happens. You stop feeding the situation with emotion. You stop giving away information. You stop revealing your internal state. And while others rush to fill the noise, you remain clear. That's the key. Silence creates uncertainty in others while preserving clarity in you. Uncertainty weakens them. Clarity strengthens you. Most people talk because they are uncomfortable with silence. They talk to relieve tension. They talk to explain themselves. They talk to justify. They talk to feel seen. Dominant people don't need to do that. The most powerful individuals you've encountered were never the loudest in the room. They didn't rush to answer. They didn't over-explain. They didn't defend their position emotionally. They spoke less because they didn't need approval. You have a choice. Fill the silence or let it work for you. Control speaks quietly. Chaos speaks loudly. Silence forces other people to reveal themselves. When you don't rush to respond, they keep talking. They clarify their intentions. They expose their insecurity. They show their hand. You, on the other side, gain information without giving any away. That's leverage. And leverage is never loud. Look at any high-stakes environment, negotiations, leadership meetings, conflict situations. The person who pauses, who listens, who doesn't rush to speak, controls the tempo. They decide when the conversation moves forward. That's the key. Speed is not power. Tempo is. When you speak less, every word carries more weight. When you speak constantly, your words lose value. Silence increases the price of your voice. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to think. You don't need their permission to remain silent. Most people are afraid that silence will make them look weak. The truth is the opposite. Silence signals self-trust. It signals emotional stability. It signals that you are not scrambling for validation. It's not about being quiet. It's about being intentional. Control speaks quietly. Chaos speaks loudly. Think about how often you've talked just to avoid discomfort. You explained when no explanation was required. You defended when no attack was real. You reacted because silence felt awkward. That wasn't strength. That was fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of losing status. Fear of not being in control. Silence removes that fear, if you let it. Here's the discipline you must build. When provoked, don't respond immediately. When questioned, don't rush to justify. When challenged, don't raise your voice. Pause. You have a choice. That pause does three things at once. It calms your nervous system. It slows the interaction. and it forces the other person to carry the weight of the moment. Most people can't handle that weight. They crack. They overtalk. They expose themselves. You stay centered. That's the key. Silence also protects your clarity. When you talk emotionally, you reinforce the emotion. When you stay silent, the emotion fades. The mind settles. Perspective returns. Emotion feeds on expression. Discipline starves it. It's not about suppression. It's about regulation. Control speaks quietly. Chaos speaks loudly. You must understand this. Not every silence needs to be permanent. Some silences are temporary, strategic, intentional. They exist to give you time to think. The mistake is thinking you owe everyone an immediate response. You don't. You don't need their permission to take time. You don't need their permission to withhold words. You don't need their permission to choose silence. Silence is not absence. It's presence without noise. And presence is powerful. Watch how people react when you stop filling the space. Watch how conversations shift. Watch how respect grows. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped chasing it. That's the paradox. The less you try to control how you're perceived, the more control you actually gain. You have a choice. Speak to soothe your anxiety, or stay silent to build authority. Control speaks quietly. Chaos speaks loudly. This chapter demands practice. Not theory. Practice. The next time someone pushes your buttons, don't answer immediately. Let the moment breathe. Let the discomfort exist. You'll feel the urge to speak. That urge is weakness leaving your body. Let it pass. The next time you're questioned aggressively, answer calmly, or not at all. Short, precise, controlled. The next time you feel misunderstood, resist the urge to explain. Results will speak louder than your words ever could. That's the key. Dominance is not proven through volume. It's proven through restraint. People who are truly secure do not narrate themselves. They act. They observe. They choose when to speak. And when they do speak, it matters. Control speaks quietly. Chaos speaks loudly. By now you should feel the shift. You're starting to see silence not as emptiness but as space. Space to think. Space to observe. Space to decide. That space is where power lives. You learned in the last chapter that reactions drain your power. In this chapter you learned what replaces reaction. Silence. But silence alone is not enough. Silence must be backed by internal discipline. Without discipline, silence becomes avoidance. With discipline, silence becomes control. You've learned to stop reacting. You've learned to stay silent. Now you must learn when to detach entirely. You're gaining control of your responses. Now it's time to gain control of your attachments. Chapter 3. Stop explaining yourself to people who don't care. You explain too much, and it's weakening you. Every time you feel misunderstood, you rush to clarify. Every time someone questions you, you defend. Every time your actions are judged, you feel the urge to justify yourself. That urge is not logic. It's insecurity. Explaining is a subconscious plea for validation and approval. It's the mind asking, please understand me. Please agree with me. Please see me the way I see myself. That's the key. Strong people don't need to be understood by everyone. They need to be effective. They need to be disciplined. They need to move forward regardless of opinions. If they mattered, they would already understand. You have a choice. Explain or execute. Most explanations are not given to clarify truth. They are given to soothe the ego, to reduce discomfort, to feel accepted. But acceptance is not power. Authority does not come from being understood. It comes from consistency. Look at how authority is lost. Not through failure, but through over-explanation. The more you talk, the more openings you create for doubt. The more you justify, the more you signal uncertainty. People trust actions. They question words. That's the key. Results require no explanation. A disciplined pattern of behavior answers every question without noise. When your results are clear, explanations become unnecessary. If they mattered, they would already understand. Think about how often you've explained yourself to people who had no intention of understanding you. Critics, bystanders, people committed to misunderstanding you. You spoke and they didn't listen. You explained and they judged anyway. That wasn't communication. That was energy waste. Every explanation given to the wrong person is another withdrawal from your power account. It pulls you back into reaction. It drags you into emotional labor that produces nothing. You don't need their permission to move forward. You don't need their permission to be silent. You don't need their permission to let results speak. That's the discipline. It's not about being rude. It's about being selective. Explain to mentors. Explain to partners. Explain to people invested in your growth. But stop explaining yourself to people who don't care. If they mattered, they would already understand. This chapter demands brutal honesty. Ask yourself, why am I explaining right now? Is it to clarify something important? Or is it to defend my self-image? You have a choice. Defend your image, or build your reality. That's the key. Every time you explain unnecessarily, you teach people that you need their approval. Every time you stay silent and act, you teach them that you trust your path. Silence backed by results is intimidating. That's why people try to pull you into explanations. It gives them control. Once you explain, you are reacting to them. Control shifts away from you. If they mattered, they would already understand. This discipline takes practice. The habit of explaining is deep. It feels responsible. It feels polite. But discipline is not about comfort. Discipline is about long-term strength. The next time you feel the urge to justify yourself, pause. Ask one question. Does this person's understanding change my direction? If the answer is no, stay silent. You don't need their permission. You don't need to announce your plans. You don't need to justify your choices. You don't need to convince anyone. That's the shift from reactive living to disciplined living. Explaining ties you to other people's opinions. Silence frees you from them. And freedom is essential for emotional control. If they mattered, they would already understand. This chapter is about reclaiming authority. Not authority over others, but authority over yourself. Over your time. Over your energy. Over your emotional responses. You are learning to move quietly. To act without narration. To let outcomes do the talking. You stopped reacting. You learned silence. Now you stop explaining. Each step removes another way the world drains your power. That's the pattern. And now that you've removed the need for approval, something else becomes possible. Real discipline. The kind that doesn't depend on mood, emotion, or recognition. You've cut the noise. You've protected your energy. Now you must build strength before pressure hits. You don't rise in chaos. You fall to your training. Chapter 4. Emotional discipline is built before the moment. You don't rise in chaos. You fall to your training. That sentence explains almost every emotional failure you've ever had. When pressure hits, you don't suddenly become weak. You reveal what you practiced. When stress shows up, you don't magically gain discipline. You default to habits. When emotions spike, you don't think your way out. You act your way down. That's the key. Emotional discipline is not built during emotional moments. It is built long before them. In quiet hours. In boring routines. In small decisions that feel insignificant at the time. You have a choice. Train when it's calm, or collapse when it's chaotic. Most people wait for the moment to arrive. They tell themselves they'll handle it better next time. They think awareness alone will save them. It won't. Awareness without training is useless under pressure. You don't rise in chaos. You fall to your training. Think about how people panic. They say things like, I don't know what came over me, or, I wasn't thinking. That's not a mystery. That's biology. Under stress, the mind hands control to habit. If your habits are impulsive, your reactions will be impulsive. If your habits are disciplined, your reactions will be disciplined. That's the key. You cannot expect emotional control if you practice emotional indulgence every day. You cannot expect calm if you train chaos. You cannot expect restraint if you never restrain yourself when it doesn't matter. Discipline is built when no one is watching. Daily self-restraint is the foundation. Not dramatic restraint. Small restraint. Choosing not to say something unnecessary. Choosing not to check something impulsively. Choosing to wait instead of rush. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. You have a choice. Give in to every urge, or train yourself to pause. Delayed gratification is not a productivity trick. It's emotional conditioning. When you delay comfort, you strengthen control. When you delay impulse, you expand tolerance. When you wait, you teach your nervous system that discomfort is survivable. That's the key. Most people are emotionally weak not because life is hard, but because they never practice waiting. They eat when bored. They speak when anxious. They scroll when uncomfortable. They distract themselves at the first sign of restlessness. Boredom terrifies them. But boredom tolerance is power. If you cannot sit with boredom, you cannot sit with pressure. If you cannot endure stillness, you cannot endure silence. If you cannot delay pleasure, you cannot delay reaction. You don't rise in chaos, you fall to your training. This chapter demands action, not inspiration. Start here. Practice restraint when it doesn't matter. Skip the unnecessary comment. Delay the unnecessary purchase. Pause before the unnecessary response. Do it daily. You are not trying to look disciplined. You are training your nervous system. That's the key. Emotional discipline is physical before it is mental. The body must learn that urgency is not danger. The body must learn that silence is safe. The body must learn that waiting does not equal loss. That learning only happens through repetition. You don't need their permission to slow down. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to build discipline quietly. It's not about suppressing desire. It's about directing it. Every time you resist a small urge, you deposit into your control account. Every time you delay gratification, you expand your emotional capacity. Every time you endure boredom without escaping, you harden your mind. That's training. And training compounds. When the real moment arrives, the insult, the pressure, the loss, you won't need to think. Your body will already know how to stay still. Your mind will already know how to pause. You don't rise in chaos, you fall to your training. This is why motivation fails people. Motivation shows up when things are exciting. Discipline shows up when things are dull. And life-changing moments don't feel exciting when they happen. They feel overwhelming. Only discipline survives that. You have a choice. Live reactively and hope for control, or train deliberately and guarantee it. Here's another hard truth. If your daily life is chaotic, your emotional life will be chaotic. If your routines are sloppy, your reactions will be sloppy. If your schedule lacks structure, your mind will lack structure. Order creates calm. That's the key. Structure your days to reduce unnecessary decisions. Reduce decision fatigue and emotional control becomes easier. Wake up consistently. Eat consistently. Work consistently. Train consistently. Not for productivity. For emotional stability. You don't need their permission to live a disciplined life. You don't need their permission to be boring. You don't need their permission to repeat the basics. Boring discipline creates unshakable calm. This chapter is not glamorous because real strength isn't. It's built quietly through repetition, through restraint, through choosing long-term control over short-term comfort. It's not about talent. It's about training. It's not about personality. It's about practice. You don't rise in chaos, you fall to your training. If you want emotional silence in the moment, you must earn it beforehand. If you want control under pressure, you must practice control under boredom. If you want calm in crisis, you must choose restraint when nothing is at stake. That's the path. You've stopped reacting. You've learned silence. You've stopped explaining. Now you build the discipline that makes those skills automatic. Because silence without discipline is fragile. But silence backed by training is unbreakable. You are no longer preparing to react better. You are preparing to not react at all. And once discipline is built, something else becomes possible. Detachment. The ability to care less without losing purpose. To step back without giving up control. You've trained yourself. Now it's time to release unnecessary attachment. Chapter 5. Detach to dominate. Care less, see more, move better. That phrase is not indifference. It is precision. Most people think attachment makes them strong. They believe caring deeply gives them motivation, meaning, drive. What it actually gives them is blind spots. Emotional attachment narrows vision. It distorts judgment. It ties your identity to outcomes you cannot fully control. That's the trap. Emotional attachment creates blind spots. Detachment creates leverage. That's the key. When you are attached, you react. When you are detached, you observe. When you are attached, you chase outcomes. When you are detached, you make better decisions. You have a choice. Cling or control. Detachment does not mean you stop trying. It means you stop bleeding emotionally when things don't go your way. It means you stop tying your self-worth to opinions, results, and temporary losses. Care less, see more, move better. Let's be clear. You are not detaching from effort. You are detaching from emotional dependency. From the need for approval. From the need for instant results. From the need to be validated by every outcome. That's the discipline. Most people collapse emotionally because they are attached to things they don't own. Other people's opinions. Short-term outcomes. External recognition. When those things shift, and they always do, so does their stability. You don't need their permission to detach. You don't need their permission to care less. You don't need their permission to protect your clarity. That's the key. Detachment gives you space. Space between stimulus and response. Space between outcome and identity. Space between loss and meaning. And in that space, power returns. Care less, see more, move better. Think about how much energy you've wasted taking things personally. A comment, a look, a delay, a setback. You assumed it meant something about you. You reacted. You spiraled. You lost focus. That was attachment talking. When you detach, you stop assuming everything is about you. You stop personalizing randomness. You stop letting temporary events define permanent identity. It's not about apathy. It's about accuracy. That's the key. Separating identity from outcomes is non-negotiable if you want emotional control. Outcomes fluctuate. Opinions change. Results lag. If your identity moves with them, you will never be stable. You have a choice. Anchor your identity to discipline, or let it drift with results. Discipline is internal. Outcomes are external. Care less, see more, move better. Here's a hard truth. The more you need something to go right, the worse you perform. Attachment adds pressure. Pressure clouds judgment. Clouded judgment creates mistakes. Detachment removes pressure. It restores clarity. It allows you to operate without emotional distortion. That's leverage. This applies everywhere. Work, relationships, goals, conflict. When you are detached, you can walk away if needed. That alone changes the power dynamic. People feel it. Situations shift. Options appear. When you are attached, you chase. And chasing always signals weakness. You don't need their permission to stop chasing. You don't need their permission to step back. You don't need their permission to choose clarity over comfort. That's the discipline. Temporary losses are part of life. Detachment allows you to absorb them without internal collapse. Without panic. Without self-doubt spirals. Loss without detachment breaks people. Loss with detachment trains them. That's the key. Care less, see more, move better. Detachment also protects you from emotional manipulation. If someone knows you care too much about their opinion, they can control you. If someone knows you're attached to an outcome, they can pressure you. When you detach, manipulation fails. You remain calm. You remain flexible. You remain in control. This is not natural. Must be trained. Start by noticing where you are emotionally overinvested. Notice what triggers anxiety. Notice what you obsess over. Notice what you fear losing. Those are attachment points. You have a choice. Strengthen those attachments, or loosen them. Loosening attachment does not mean abandoning goals. It means committing to process over outcome. Showing up regardless of result. Acting without emotional bargaining. It's not about not caring. It's about caring correctly. That's the key. Care about effort. Care about discipline. Care about execution. Detach from applause. Detach from timing. Detach from external validation. Care less, see more, move better. When you do this, something powerful happens. Your emotions stabilize. Your decisions improve. Your reactions slow down. Your silence becomes effortless. You're no longer trying to control the world. You're controlling yourself. And that's the entire theme of this book. You are learning to master your inner world before life tests you. Detachment is a cornerstone of that mastery. Without detachment, silence is fragile. With detachment, silence is natural. Without detachment, discipline feels forced. With detachment, discipline feels obvious. You don't need their permission to detach from opinions. You don't need their permission to release outcomes. You don't need their permission to protect your mental clarity. That's the shift. Care less, see more, move better. As you detach, you'll notice something uncomfortable. People may misunderstand you. They may project. They may test harder. That's fine. Detachment means you don't rush to correct perceptions. You let time and consistency do the work. That's dominance without noise. This chapter completes a cycle. You stopped reacting. You embraced silence. You stopped explaining. You built discipline. Now you detach. Each step removes another way the world pulls you off center. And once you are detached, you gain access to something rare, the ability to pause under pressure. Detachment gives you space. Space gives you pause. Pause gives you power. You are ready for the next level. You've learned to care less. Now you must learn to pause while others panic. Chapter 6. Learn to pause while others panic. Pause first. Power follows. That single habit separates those who collapse under pressure from those who rise quietly above it. When chaos hits, most people rush. They speak too fast. They decide too quickly. They act before thinking. Panic convinces them that speed equals strength. It doesn't. Speed without control is weakness. The pause between stimulus and response is where power lives. That pause is small. Sometimes only a few seconds. But inside it exists clarity, choice, and dominance. That's the key. You have a choice. React instantly, or pause deliberately. Most people never pause. The moment something happens, they are already inside it emotionally. Their heart rate spikes. Their ego flares. Their fear takes over. And once panic enters, intelligence exits. Pause first. Power follows. This chapter is about training yourself to pause when everything inside you screams to act. Because life will test you. In conflict. In disrespect. In stress. In failure. Those moments are not rare. They are guaranteed. The question is not whether pressure will come. The question is whether you will pause when it does. Let's start with conflict. Someone challenges you. Accuses you. Disrespects you. Your instinct is to defend. To interrupt. To raise your voice. To prove your point. That instinct feels strong. It's not. It's emotional reflex. When you pause instead, the dynamic shifts. Silence forces the other person to continue talking. To reveal emotion. To overplay their hand. While they escalate, you stabilize. That's the key. Pause first. Power follows. In moments of disrespect, silence is not submission. Silence is restraint. And restraint communicates confidence far louder than aggression ever could. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need their permission to choose control. Most people think responding quickly makes them look sharp. What it really does is expose their emotional buttons. If someone can rush you, they can control you. Stress works the same way. Deadlines. Pressure. Unexpected problems. When stress hits, the untrained mind panics. It multitasks poorly. It jumps between solutions. It tries to escape discomfort instead of solving the problem. Pausing interrupts that spiral. Even a short pause resets your nervous system. It lowers emotional intensity. It allows logic to re-enter the room. That's the key. Pause first. Power follows. Now consider failure. Failure triggers panic faster than anything else. Self-doubt. Shame. Urgency to fix everything immediately. People rush into bad decisions trying to erase the feeling. That rush makes the damage worse. Pausing after failure gives you perspective. It separates the event from your identity. It prevents emotional overcorrection. It allows you to respond strategically instead of emotionally. It's not about the failure. It's about the response. That's the discipline. You have a choice. Let failure rush you or let it sharpen you. Pausing is not passive. It is active self-control. Here's the truth most people never hear. The person who pauses controls the tempo. The person who controls the tempo controls the outcome. That's the key. In negotiations, the first person to speak after a pause often loses leverage. In arguments, the calmer person dictates direction. In crisis, the composed mind sees options the panicked mind cannot. Pause first. Power follows. This is not a personality trait. It is a trained response. You train it the same way you've trained everything else in this book. Start small. When something irritates you, pause before speaking. When you receive bad news, pause before reacting. When you feel urgency, pause before acting. Count silently if needed. Breathe once. Slow down deliberately. That pause is not wasted time. It is preparation. You don't need their permission to slow the moment down. You don't need their permission to think. You don't need their permission to be composed. Most people live as if urgency is always real. It's not. Urgency is often emotional noise. Panic pretending to be importance. Discipline questions urgency. That's the key. Ask yourself, is this truly urgent or am I uncomfortable? Discomfort pushes people to react. Discipline allows you to sit with it. Pause first. Power follows. As you practice this, something changes internally. Your tolerance for pressure increases. Your emotional spikes flatten. Situations that once overwhelmed you start to feel manageable. That's growth. And others notice. They notice that you don't rush. That you don't flinch. That you don't mirror their panic. That steadiness becomes your signature. People trust calm. People follow calm. People respect calm. It's not about being slow. It's about being deliberate. That's the key. This chapter connects everything you've learned so far. You stopped reacting. You learned silence. You stopped explaining. You built discipline. You detached. Pausing is the visible result of all of that training. Without discipline, pausing feels impossible. With discipline, pausing becomes automatic. You are no longer at the mercy of the moment. You decide how the moment unfolds. Pause first. Power follows. There will be moments where you forget. You will react. You will rush. That's not failure. That's feedback. Notice it. Correct it. Train again. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. That's the discipline. As you master the pause, panic loses its grip on you. And when panic loses its grip, something else emerges, unbothered strength. You stop being shaken. You stop being rushed. You stop being pulled into chaos. And once you are unbothered, your emotional silence becomes complete. You've learned to pause under pressure. Now you must learn to remain untouched by it. You've slowed the moment. Now you harden the mind. Chapter 7. The Silent Advantage of Being Unbothered. Nothing touches a calm mind. Read that slowly. Nothing touches a calm mind. Being unbothered is not apathy. It is not laziness. It is not indifference. Being unbothered is emotional immunity. It is the ability to remain stable while the world tries to shake you. Most people misunderstand this. They think being unbothered means you don't care. The truth is sharper. You care, but you don't bleed. That's the key. When you are unbothered, you are no longer emotionally available for manipulation. You still see. You still act. You still decide. But you are no longer reactive. You have a choice. Be emotionally exposed, or emotionally immune. Nothing touches a calm mind. People constantly test boundaries. They provoke. They poke. They criticize. They disrespect. Not always maliciously. Sometimes unconsciously. They are looking for reactions. Reactions give them feedback. Reactions give them leverage. When nothing gets a reaction, people stop trying to control you. That's the power of being unbothered. Think about it. If someone insults you and you react, they learn something. If someone ignores you and you chase, they learn something. If someone criticizes you and you defend, they learn something. They learn where your buttons are. Being unbothered removes the buttons. That's the key. Nothing touches a calm mind. This chapter is about emotional invisibility. Not hiding. Not withdrawing. But refusing to broadcast your inner state to the world. When people cannot read you, they cannot rush you. When they cannot rush you, they cannot control you. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need their permission to remain unbothered. Most people are bothered because they are emotionally available to everyone. Every opinion enters. Every comment lands. Every look matters. That is not openness. That is vulnerability without discipline. It's not about being cold. It's about being selective. That's the key. Being unbothered means you decide what deserves your emotional energy. Everything else passes through without friction. You have a choice. Let everything in, or filter ruthlessly. Nothing touches a calm mind. When you stop reacting, something uncomfortable happens at first. People escalate. They push harder. They test more aggressively. They want to see if they can still reach you. This is normal. Silence and calm unsettle people who rely on emotional control. Stay steady. That's the discipline. Eventually they stop. Because control requires response. No response means no reward. When nothing gets a reaction, people stop trying to control you. This applies everywhere. At work, being unbothered makes you appear grounded, reliable, difficult to shake. Managers trust people who don't spiral under pressure. In relationships, being unbothered prevents emotional games. No chasing. No overreacting. No dramatic swings. Just consistency. In conflict, being unbothered disarms aggression. Anger feeds on opposition. Calm starves it. Nothing touches a calm mind. This does not mean you accept disrespect. It means you respond without emotional leakage. Firm. Clear. Controlled. It's not about passivity. It's about precision. That's the key. Unbothered people choose their battles. They don't fight every comment. They don't correct every misunderstanding. They don't react to every provocation. They move with intention. You have a choice. Engage emotionally, or observe strategically. Here's the discipline you must practice. When something triggers you, ask one question. Does this require a response, or is this noise? Most of the time it's noise. Silence is not avoidance when it is intentional. Silence is strategy when it is chosen. Nothing touches a calm mind. Being unbothered also protects your internal energy. Emotional reactions are exhausting. Calm is efficient. When you stop being bothered by trivial things, you free energy for what actually matters. Focus improves. Clarity improves. Decision-making improves. That's the payoff. Most people live in a constant state of low-level agitation. Annoyed. Frustrated. Distracted. They think it's normal. It's not. It's unmanaged emotion. You are learning to manage it. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. You don't need their permission to stay centered. You don't need their permission to be unbothered. That's the shift. Nothing touches a calm mind. This calm is not accidental. It is built. Through everything you've practiced so far. Silence. Detachment. Discipline. Pause. Unbothered is not a personality. It's a skill. And like any skill, it requires repetition. You will be tested. Daily. Someone will try to rush you. Someone will try to provoke you. Someone will misunderstand you. Let them. You are no longer responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are responsible for mastering your own. That's the key. When you stay unbothered, your presence changes. People feel it. They sense that you are not easily moved. That stability becomes authority. Not loud authority. Quiet authority. The kind that doesn't need explanation. Nothing touches a calm mind. This chapter completes another transformation. You are no longer reactive. You are no longer rushed. You are no longer emotionally accessible to chaos. You have emotional immunity. But there is still one weakness left to eliminate. One that destroys even disciplined people if left unchecked. The desire for comfort. The urge to escape discomfort. You've learned to stay calm. Now you must learn to stay disciplined when it hurts. You've mastered being unbothered. Now let's talk about the real test. Chapter 8. Discipline is choosing long-term respect over short-term relief. Comfort now is weakness later. That sentence explains why most people sabotage themselves right when it matters most. Emotional outbursts feel good. For a moment. Venting feels honest. Complaining feels justified. Escaping discomfort feels necessary. And every time you choose that relief, you trade away something far more valuable. Respect. Credibility. Strength. That's the key. Discipline is not about being perfect. It is about enduring discomfort without self-sabotage. It is the ability to feel the urge to escape, and not obey it. You have a choice. Relief now or respect later. Most people choose relief. They snap when stressed. They quit when uncomfortable. They numb themselves when bored. They justify it by saying they're just being real. They are being weak. Comfort now is weakness later. Every emotional outburst teaches your nervous system a dangerous lesson. Escape works. And once escape works, it becomes the default. The next time discomfort shows up, your body reaches for the same shortcut. That's how discipline erodes. It's not about anger. It's not about sadness. It's about control. That's the key. When you lash out, you feel lighter. When you complain, you feel heard. When you avoid the hard thing, you feel safe. But these feelings are temporary. The cost is permanent. People remember how you behave under pressure. They remember who breaks. They remember who holds the line. You don't need their permission to endure discomfort. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need their permission to choose discipline. This chapter is about learning to sit with discomfort until it loses power over you. Discomfort is not danger. It is information. And discipline is your ability to receive that information without reacting destructively. Comfort now is weakness later. Look at the pattern. Emotional outbursts don't solve problems. They announce instability. They turn private frustration into public liability. They feel like release, but they lower your status in the eyes of others, and in your own mind. Self-respect is built by restraint. That's the key. Every time you hold back when you want to explode, you strengthen something inside you. Every time you endure boredom without distraction, you sharpen focus. Every time you continue when quitting feels easier, you deepen credibility. Discipline compounds. You have a choice. Indulge the emotion, or train the mind. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about forcing productivity. It's not. It's about emotional governance. It's about deciding what gets expressed and what gets managed internally. It's not about suppressing feelings. It's about directing behavior. That's the discipline. Comfort now is weakness later. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you cannot tolerate discomfort, you cannot tolerate growth. Growth requires friction. Friction creates heat. Heat reveals weakness. Discipline is staying in the heat without melting. This applies everywhere. At work, discipline means not venting to the wrong people. It means handling pressure privately and delivering results publicly. In relationships, discipline means not unloading emotions impulsively. It means choosing timing, tone, and restraint. In personal goals, discipline means showing up even when motivation disappears. You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need their permission to feel uncomfortable. You don't need their permission to grow slowly and silently. That's the key. Short-term relief feels productive because it removes pain. But pain is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Avoidance delays strength. Avoidance trains weakness. Comfort now is weakness later. Ask yourself this question regularly. Is this action building future respect, or just relieving current discomfort? If it only relieves discomfort, pause. You have a choice. Choose the harder option when it matters. Choose silence over outburst. Choose patience over escape. Choose effort over excuses. That's how discipline becomes identity. Most people wait for discomfort to go away before acting. Disciplined people act while discomfort is present. That's the difference. You are not trying to be emotionless. You are trying to be reliable, to yourself and to others. Reliability comes from consistency under stress. That's the key. Every time you resist short-term relief, you earn long-term trust. People trust those who don't collapse emotionally. They trust those who don't chase comfort. They trust those who stay steady when things are hard. And more importantly, you trust yourself. Self-trust is the foundation of emotional silence. Comfort now is weakness later. This chapter is a line in the sand. From this point forward, you stop making decisions based on how you feel in the moment. You make decisions based on who you are becoming. You have a choice. Be governed by mood, or governed by discipline. Discipline does not remove discomfort. It teaches you to coexist with it, to work through it, to outlast it. And once you outlast discomfort often enough, it stops scaring you. That's the key. You've learned to be unbothered. Now you learn to be unbreakable. You've learned to stay calm. Now you learn to stay disciplined when calm disappears. Because life will remove comfort. It will test endurance. It will pressure you to react, to escape, to indulge. And when it does, your discipline will speak for you. Comfort now is weakness later. You're almost complete. You've mastered silence. You've mastered restraint. You've mastered discipline. Now it's time to turn all of this inward. Away from noise, away from validation, away from the crowd. You don't need to be seen. You need to be built. Chapter 9. Become dangerous without becoming loud. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. That sentence explains why some people intimidate without speaking and others shout without impact. Loud people seek attention. Dangerous people seek results. That's the difference. Most people are loud because they want to be seen. They announce plans. They broadcast effort. They narrate growth. They want recognition before results exist. That noise is insecurity. Dangerous people move differently. They work quietly. They prepare privately. They let time and consistency do the talking. That's the key. You have a choice. Be noticed, or be effective. Becoming dangerous is not about aggression. It's about capability. It's about competence built so deeply that it no longer needs validation. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. Think about the people you truly respect. The ones whose presence changes a room. They are rarely the loudest. They don't over-explain. They don't announce themselves. They don't chase attention. They don't need to. Their confidence is not performative. It's earned. That's the key. Loudness is often a cover for lack of preparation. Noise distracts from inconsistency. Silence exposes it. That's why most people avoid silence. Silence forces results to stand alone. You don't need their permission to work quietly. You don't need their permission to stay unseen. You don't need their permission to prepare in private. This chapter is about removing the final weakness, the need to be witnessed while you grow. Attention feels powerful. It's not. Attention is fragile. It fades quickly. Results compound. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. Dangerous people don't threaten. They don't posture. They don't flex prematurely. They simply become capable enough that opposition stops trying. That capability is built through quiet consistency. Daily effort without announcement. Daily discipline without applause. Daily improvement without validation. That's the work. You have a choice. Chase motivation, or build discipline. Chase recognition, or build skill. It's not about ego. It's about leverage. That's the key. Invisible preparation is uncomfortable because it offers no immediate reward. No praise. No feedback loop. Just effort and uncertainty. Most people can't tolerate that. They need reassurance. They need likes. They need encouragement. Dangerous people don't. They understand something fundamental. If you need external motivation, you are externally controlled. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. This chapter demands maturity. The maturity to delay recognition. The maturity to let others underestimate you. The maturity to stay focused when no one is watching. Underestimation is an advantage. When people underestimate you, pressure disappears. Expectations lower. Freedom increases. You can move without resistance. That's leverage. You don't need their permission to be underestimated. You don't need their permission to move quietly. You don't need their permission to grow slowly and steadily. That's the discipline. Loud people peak early. Dangerous people compound. Loud people burn energy proving. Dangerous people invest energy building. Loud people react emotionally. Dangerous people respond strategically. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. This applies to everything. In work, stop announcing goals. Execute. Let results surprise people. In fitness, stop posting progress. Train. Let your presence change. In skill building, stop talking about plans. Practice. Let competence speak. You are not hiding. You are incubating. That's the key. Quiet consistency beats intense bursts. Always. Intensity burns out. Consistency builds identity. You are no longer trying to look disciplined. You are disciplined. You are no longer trying to appear calm. You are calm. You are no longer trying to be strong. You are strong. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. Here is the paradox. When you stop trying to be seen, you become impossible to ignore. When you stop explaining, people start watching. When you stop chasing attention, attention finds you. Because results attract attention naturally. That's the law. You have a choice. Be loud and temporary, or quiet and permanent. This chapter completes your transformation from reactive to formidable. You no longer need to react. You no longer need to explain. You no longer need to be validated. You build quietly. You move deliberately. You speak rarely. And when you do speak, it matters. That's the key. Becoming dangerous without becoming loud means your confidence no longer depends on external feedback. It comes from knowing what you've built in silence. Confidence rooted in preparation cannot be shaken. Nothing touches a calm mind. Nothing rushes a disciplined one. Nothing distracts a focused one. Silent growth creates unavoidable presence. At this stage, your emotional silence is complete. You are no longer leaking power through reactions. You are no longer giving away control through noise. You are no longer dependent on comfort or validation. But there is one final step. Mastery is not proven once. It is maintained daily. You've learned how to build strength. Now you must learn how to protect it. The final chapter brings everything together. It is not about growth. It is about preservation. You mastered yourself. Now make it permanent. Chapter 10. Master yourself before life forces you to. Control yourself or life will control you. That is not motivation. That is a warning. Life does not ask if you are ready. It does not wait until you feel prepared. It applies pressure on its own schedule. Loss, conflict, stress, failure, disrespect, uncertainty. These are not exceptions. They are guarantees. Everyone is tested. Only the disciplined survive without breaking. That's the key. Most people don't fall apart because life is unfair. They fall apart because they never mastered themselves before the test arrived. They relied on comfort. They relied on mood. They relied on circumstances staying favorable. Life never promised that. You have a choice. Train yourself now, or be trained by pain later. Control yourself or life will control you. This final chapter is not about learning something new. It is about locking in everything you have already learned. Making it automatic. Making it permanent. Emotional silence is not a switch you flip in crisis. It is a state you earn through repetition, awareness, and restraint. You don't become calm under pressure by hoping. You become calm by training calm daily. That's the key. Look back at everything you've built. You stopped reacting. You learned silence. You stopped explaining. You built discipline. You detached. You learned to pause. You became unbothered. You chose long-term strength over short-term relief. You built quietly. This was not theory. This was conditioning. And conditioning determines outcomes when thinking fails. Control yourself or life will control you. When pressure hits, you will not rise to your intentions. You will fall to your habits. If your habit is emotional reaction, you will react. If your habit is silence, you will pause. If your habit is discipline, you will endure. That's the reality. Life doesn't care what you know. It cares what you do automatically. You have a choice. Build automatic discipline, or stay vulnerable to chaos. Most people think emotional control means suppressing feelings. It doesn't. It means not being ruled by them. Feelings will always arise. Fear, anger, doubt, frustration. The difference now is that they no longer decide your behavior. That's mastery. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being sovereign. That's the key. Sovereignty means you choose your response regardless of pressure. It means no situation hijacks your behavior. It means no person controls your internal state. You don't need their permission to be composed. You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You answer to yourself. Control yourself or life will control you. Life tests everyone differently. Some are tested through success, ego, attention, comfort. Others through loss, failure, humiliation, delay. But the test is the same. Will you react, or will you respond? Will you panic, or will you pause? Will you collapse, Or will you stay steady? That's the key. Emotional silence becomes automatic only when you refuse to break your standards under pressure. Every time you hold the line, you reinforce identity. Every time you stay disciplined, you strengthen control. Identity is built under stress. You are no longer training to win arguments. You are training to remain intact. This is bigger than confidence, bigger than mindset, bigger than performance. This is about self-respect. Self-respect is knowing you can trust yourself when things go wrong. Comfort disappears. Support disappears. Certainty disappears. But discipline remains, if you built it. Control yourself or life will control you. Here is the final instruction. Do not relax your standards just because you feel better. Do not abandon discipline because things are calm. Calm is not the end. Calm is preparation. The moment you stop practicing restraint, reaction creeps back in. The moment you chase comfort again, weakness returns. The moment you seek validation again, noise enters. You have a choice. Maintain discipline, or start over later. That's the key. This book was never about becoming superior to others. It was about becoming unreachable by chaos. About building a mind that does not shatter under pressure. About staying grounded when others spiral. That is real strength. You are now capable of emotional silence. You are now capable of restraint. You are now capable of control. But capability is useless without consistency. So the challenge is simple. Pause before you react. Stay silent when ego wants to speak. Endure discomfort without escape. Detach from outcomes. Build quietly. Repeat daily. You don't need their permission. This is not a phase. This is who you are now. Control yourself or life will control you. Life will test you again. It always does. When it does, remember this moment. Remember that discipline is not something you summon, it is something you live. And when the test arrives, you won't panic. You won't react. You won't explain. You will pause. You will remain calm. You will choose control. That is mastery. And mastery, once built, belongs to you forever. This audiobook was not about becoming emotionless. It was about becoming unreachable. You now understand that every reaction weakens you, and every moment of silence strengthens you. The disciplined mind does not chase validation. It does not explain itself. It does not panic. From this moment forward, your challenge is simple. Pause when you want to react. Stay silent when you want to prove something. Choose control when chaos invites you in. Life will test you, but it will not break you if you master yourself first. Be calm. Be disciplined. Be silent. And let your results speak for you.